What's good, y'all? She got Bendu. And I wanna so I started watching this segment on the Hill, and I wanted to give my thoughts on it because it's about Julian Assange. And I just find this what these dudes were saying, like the parts I watched, I just found it amazing what they were saying. So let's just go through and watch this video together. I'm gonna be stopping and pausing a lot and commenting on certain parts, so just stick with me during that, and here we go.
On Monday, a coalition of civil rights groups urged the new administration to drop the indictment of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, calling the Trump-era case a grave threat to press freedom. That's according to the New York Times.
So despite the efforts, President Biden actually plans to continue to seek the extradition of Assange from the UK to the US for face conspiracy charges.
So that was breaking. That's what we recently found out, which was no surprise to anybody, because as it was revealed by Snowden on Joe Rogan's show, Joe Biden is the reason why he was trapped in Russia. And it was a tactic used to basically discredit him as a Russian asset and all that nonsense. So, but also I would bring up, it's kind of ironic now after all this time, you know, the New York Times, you probably could have like lobbied Donald Trump to do this instead of like constantly shitting on him. Like this would have been the one good thing he could do, but partisan reasons, they don't give a fuck about, you know, journalism. All they care about is what their interest, you know, where their monetary interest lies. So just continuing.
Democratic strategist and the maestro himself, Roger Fisk, and principal at Silent Majority Strategies, Keith Naughton. They join us now to discuss. Good to see you guys. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Roger, let me start with you because you have some State Department experience. I'm not sure if you were there at the time of WikiLeaks and all of that, so you might have more of a nuanced view on all of this. What do you make of the Biden administration's continued attempts here, given also what they've said about guaranteeing press freedom?
First off, good morning. It's wonderful to be here with Keith, and thank you so much for having me. To be very clear, for the sake of your viewers, I was actually an appointee at Commerce, and a lot of that portfolio obviously overlaps with State. You know, I think the Biden administration essentially has to do this. One can't be surprised if you disseminate tetrabytes of classified information about U.S. military operations that they're going to want to have a conversation with you and probably invite you to U.S. soil for that conversation.
Yeah, they want to illegally extradite an Australian citizen, and the fact that Australia has not stepped up and said something about this shows you where their allegiance lies as well. But the fact that they're trying to extradite him for exposing war crimes, this is like trying to arrest Julian Assange. Like this is like trying to arrest the people that exposed the Pentagon Papers, going after like Bob Woodward and all the people involved with that. This is literally the equivalent of that. This is why people like Bob Woodward have been, or not Bob Woodward, the other guy. I always forget his name. The gentleman, Jesus, man. I forgot what his name was. Daniel Ellsberg. I always forget his name, yo. I feel like an asshole. Daniel Ellsberg. That's literally like arresting Daniel, going after Daniel Ellsberg, which they did. They tried to, but they're literally like, and then on top of that, with the judge basically saying that America's prison system is so horrible, Julian Assange would literally die or commit suicide in the jail, which is why he didn't get extradited. So the fact that they literally have him sitting in prison right now for no crime at all should let you know what's going on. I digress, though.
If Assange was allowed to do this, then you're essentially setting in motion a precedent whereby people can start to just treat classified material as essentially kind of a buffet.
No, it's not treating it like a buffet. It's revealing information that that United States citizens should fucking know, like committing war crimes in their name, like using taxpayer money to go over and commit war crimes against humanity. This is what happened. This wasn't about the DNC. This wasn't about Hillary Clinton. They're prosecuting him for revealing Bush-era war crimes. People like Roger Fisk aren't gonna frame it that way. They're gonna frame it out of context, well, with no context, and just frame it as he revealed classified information. And when it's like with me personally, if you're on some fuck shit, which the government always is, if you're doing some bullshit, yeah, reveal that shit. Reveal it, 100%.
And I understand why he did it, especially not being a U.S. citizen.
Obviously, you don't fucking understand because you think it's okay for the United States to, one, torture him in jail, and then two, bring him here where they're going to fucking kill him.
And things like that, I very much understand. And I have kind of a torn relationship with this because a part of me gets the value of whistleblowers, obviously.
If you're an Obama official, you obviously don't understand the value of whistleblowers because Obama went after whistleblowers. Obama jailed Chelsea Manning for revealing those Bush era crimes after he made a promise that he was going to reverse that and make right those crimes that Bush committed. Nah, he doubled down on them, which is why he went after whistleblowers too, which is why Edward Snowden had to flee the country because the proper channels don't do anything.
If we can loosely put him in that bucket, which I think is safe to do. But
it's not even about loosely. He is a publisher.
But then at the same time, if the Biden administration were not to pursue that, then that's basically sending a signal that everything is somewhat a la carte and that one's obligations, especially if you look at it through how civilian U.S. government employees could react, that this is just kind of a pick and choose kind of situation and that there may or may not be consequences for doing something like this. So I understand.
It's not a pick and choose situation. This is literally shit that the government was doing. So if those government employees, like I'm pretty sure a whistleblower is not going to be mad at another whistleblower for, you know, not going to fucking jail and actually doing journalism. So the crime that he's talking about here is journalism because that's what Julian Assange did. That's what he is. You don't see them going to the Washington Post and arresting all the journalists and whistleblowers involved with the Pentagon or the Afghanistan papers leak, which the media only covered for like a fucking day. So whistleblowers, in my opinion, like obviously I think they're heroes, one, brave people, because you're raging against the machine when you do that. You're going against the machine. But in some ways, their work, like, it's like the government has already covered their bases because they own the media. Because the corporate interest owns the media. And the corporate interest and the government are all in the same bed.
And why the Biden administration has to follow through on this.
Let me just push you a little bit.
And here's Crystal. Like, I'm a little, you know, y'all know how I feel about Crystal. I feel like she a little shady. Some bullshit around her, but she's absolutely right here. You know, but in the past, she's also laughed about the Assange situation. Her and Sagar were laughing about it, but she's absolutely 100% correct here, what she's about to say.
On this, Roger, journalists publish classified information all the time that they find that they believe to be in the best interest of the American people to have exposed. That's what Julian Assange did. What is he doing that is different than a publisher in this case? That's why it poses a threat to press freedom. Because, yeah, today maybe Julian Assange and people don't like him or they feel whatever kind of way about him because of his WikiLeaks disclosures around Hillary Clinton. But tomorrow, why couldn't it be, you know, the New York Times or another journalistic outlet?
By the way, it will never be the fucking New York Times or the Washington Post or any of those fucking mainstream media newspapers because they're stenographers for the government. And Russiagate exposed that.
Publishing classified material.
Which is why they hate Julian Assange, because they had to reveal the media as corrupt, which everybody already fucking knew. But they had to reveal how exposed the media was and how corrupt they are by having them print basically intelligence apparatus talking points and, you know, spew intelligence community talking points to cover up the fuckery that was Russiagate.
And the U.S. federal government coming after them.
I used to think gift giving was stressful, and then I discovered Harry and David. Oh my God, yes! And now it's my favorite thing.
Harry and David is...
Well, as you may remember, and I'm sure there's stories about this in virtually every administration, the Obama administration tried to get to the bottom of some of these leaks. I mean, you can't sit in the situation where
that wasn't good either. That was not good either, but go ahead.
Well, 100% agree with her there. So when he says that, translation, what that means is Barack Obama prosecuted a lot of whistleblowers as well. Instead of going after the people the whistleblowers were exposing. Barack Obama did that.
Well, but I'm just saying you can't sit somewhere and just allow leaks, especially of this size and of this.
Then if you don't want to sit there and accept leaks, how about you don't sit there and allow war crimes? How about you don't sit there and allow corruption? How about you stop the shit that they're exposing? If you stop the shit that they're exposing, there'll be nothing for them to expose. You ever think about that? But these guys are programmed to, like, they're like, corruption is normal to them. War crimes are normal to them. This shit is normal. It's normalized. They don't see anything wrong with it at all. This is like, I was watching, this is something completely different, but made me think about this just now. So I'm in Delaware. Our current senator, I always get confused, Carney or Carper. I believe Carper's our senator. Yeah, Tom Carper's our senator. I always get him and Carney confused. Carney's the governor now. Carper's the senator, but Carper used to be our governor. But I digress. This motherfucker had a debate 2 years ago in the 2018 Democratic primary where he was running, you know, he ran against the progressive woman and everything. And literally she was talking about all of his corruption, how like literally like Delaware is innately corrupt. And he looked at her like there was nothing wrong with it. He was like, he literally looked her dead in her fucking face and was like, this is the Delaware way. What are you talking about? This literally reminds me of that. Like corruption and war crimes and all the fuckery that Julian Assange exposed is so ingrained in DC that this is normal to them. They're like, what are you talking about? They don't see the problems with this. And this is the problem with fuckheads and dipshits and dipshit to the right. This is the problem with guys like this. But I digress again.
Depth. And just kind of sit back and take it. The message that sends that it's a consequence-free.
The message that sends. The message that sends. Like that, you know, freedom of speech. That message. First Amendment of the Constitution, freedom of speech. Is that what you're talking about? Journalism? Is that what you're talking about? Freedom of the press? The consequence? Freedom of speech is a consequence now? It's not a guaranteed basic human right like it says in the Constitution? Wow. He really just said that.
Endeavor is not healthy for the long-term health of your security parameters and things like that.
It's not good for the long-term use of the corrupted security measures that commit war crimes on the regular.
Keith,
if you remove consequences and accountability, then it's just a free-for-all.
Keith, let me bring you in here because this
journalism and freedom of speech is a free-for-all now. It's a consequence. It's a bad thing. That's what he's saying right now.
This is an interesting conversation that I think has been rethought much on the right, especially in the context around, you know, Trump, the FBI, and all this.
So this is the part
there were a lot of questions
I
around FISA.
I stopped the video here when I was watching. I was like, yo, I'm about to walk through this video with y'all because this nigga said some bullshit. So the one before him, he was on some fuck shit, some bullshit. This bull on the right though, this fucking, I don't know what the fuck this bull looked like, but he looked like he about to say some dumb shit. That's what he looked like. I'm telling y'all, he about to say some dumb shit. And again, Crystal, that's some weird shit around her, but she got this 100% right. Like, you know, I'm not trying to give her like credit and applaud her for, you know, actually doing her job as a journalist, which she usually does, but it's the corruption aspect behind her and her history that I have problems with that some of you have brought to me and exposed to me. But she 100% got both of these bulls here. Sagar just sitting back, letting her go, like, you know. But this bull about to say some dumbass shit. And that's what I stopped the video because it pissed me off, kind of.
Etc. back in 2017. Do you think there will be a reassessment on the right around people like Julian Assange and this case? There was a grassroots movement largely coming amongst people who were Trump supporters at the end of the Trump administration to try to get him to actually pardon Assange and Edward Snowden. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, and this is when the left lost their fucking shit because Jimmy Dore went on Tucker Carlson and got Tucker Carlson to change his mind and agree that Julian Assange should be pardoned. Go watch my Tucker Carlson video, my Jimmy Dore Tucker Carlson video I did about that. It's up in the link. It's in the little box above. You'll see it. But literally, the left lost their shit for Jimmy doing that.
That dynamic.
I mean, I think they've always had that anti-government segment on the right, and I think there always will be there.
The literal, like some of the ideology of the right is less government. So of course, which I don't agree with, but that goes without saying. It's not like this is something new under Trump. This has always been with conservatives. Like literally, I believe fucking Ronald Reagan said it. The era of big government is over. Literally, he's something along those lines. I might be paraphrasing, but Ronald Reagan like literally said that. So this isn't a new thing that came out of Trump. This is what annoys me about the political, the political structure now. They like to pretend Donald Trump is the one that made the Republican Party shit. It's like, nah, I think there's a guy named George Bush and George Bush Sr. and Ronald Reagan, like all these dudes, like it's not their fault because Trump governed just like them. He governed just like them. Y'all just don't like that he was a fucking dickhead on Twitter. That was the only thing I didn't like about Trump. He did the wars, he didn't start any new wars, as Trump supporters would say, but not for lack of trying, I say. But he continued the bombing campaigns. He continued the expanding the bloated military budget. He continued giving his tax cuts to the rich. He tried to decimate healthcare. He tried. His healthcare plan was so bad. They were like, come on, bro, we can't do this. This is too obvious. What are you doing? Like, literally, it was kind of like the establishment was like, what are you doing? So, not like Donald Trump was a good little boy. They just didn't like the fact that he tweeted a lot and took the pretty face off of American imperialism.
I don't think it's going to get very widespread because I don't think he's really a cause celeb.
Okay, widespread. The anti-government sentiment widespread. Most of your party rocks with Trump. They're anti-government. I don't know if he's a Republican, but most of the Republican Party are rocking with Trump right now. So they're anti-government. So I don't know what where you've been looking at, bro, but you need to try again. And his statement, him not knowing this, his statement that he's about to say, like, shows that he shouldn't be a journalist.
He's not an American citizen. I think it did expose American secrets, and I think it
exposed fucking war crimes. They were killing innocent civilians, journalists, and first responders.
A powerful argument that, what's the point of having diplomacy and what's the point of having our security services if they can't speak honestly, if they can't trade intelligence honestly, if it's going to get splashed all over the place.
But they're not being honest. They're fucking lying. That's the point. And he's trying to allude, and Crystal catches him here. He's trying to frame it as if Assange is being prosecuted for the DNC shit, which he's not. He's being prosecuted for exposing war crimes. And Crystal, again, did a good job nailing his ass here, like she's about to say. But that's not what he was exposing. That's not what he's charged with. He's charged with the Espionage Act when it comes to the war crimes that he exposed. The collateral murder or damage report, I think it's collateral murder report that he did. That was one of them. And exposing our torture programs as well. War crimes, torture. The worst crimes that you can commit against humanity.
Place,
let's just remember the context of, because there's been a lot with WikiLeaks. Let's just remember the context of this particular prosecution.
Yeah, a lot of good shit, Crystal. WikiLeaks has never had to retract a fucking story. Their truth meter's at 100%. Never had to retract a story. Everything they print is true because they're literally the words of the people. Literally.
This has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton and Russia and any of that. This has to do with their exposure of war crimes in Iraq.
Exactly.
WikiLeaks' exposure of war crimes in Iraq. We are all better off for knowing that occurred and having the opportunity to hold the government to account. Same with Edward Snowden. What he exposed was that the U.S. government was breaking the law and lying to the citizens about surveillance in their lives. So if those sorts...
And Snowden, I know y'all saw the report that came out last year. There was a court that ruled that Snowden was vindicated in doing that. Not necessarily vindicated that he was right, but they basically said that the programs Snowden exposed were unconstitutional, which vindicates him for doing that. So all charges should be dropped against him, and he should be allowed to come home and be left the fuck alone. But they're not going to do that because Snowden also embarrassed power. He exposed the fuckery of power, and they just can't let that type of shit go.
Sorts of secrets can't be exposed. Again, what's the distinction between these individuals exposing classified information as publishers and any other journalists doing their job trying to hold powerful people to account? And
that's the thing. There is no difference. However, the difference is that Julian Assange is actually trying to hold all powerful people to account, where mainstream media like New York Times, Washington Post, whoever it is, they're only trying to hold their political enemies to account for partisan reasons to uplift their party. That's the difference between Julian Assange and the rest and other mainstream journalists, not other journalists, because there are good journalists out there. Y'all know I talk about them all the time. Aaron Matei, Max Blumenthal. There's a whole swath of them out there. Y'all know who they are. I used to say Ryan Grimm. Ryan Grimm's acting like a little bitch now, but I digress. Yeah, but there's no difference. Julian Assange is a publisher. He's a journalist. And this guy,
they keep it secret, they keep it classified because it makes them look bad, because it exposes their own crimes.
Go ahead, Keish.
So Julian Assange gets to be a publisher or a journalist just because he says so?
Yes! Because, I'm sorry for yelling, guys. I know that probably fucked y'all ears up. Yes, this is the whole point. You don't go to journalism school and get a journalism badge and you flash your journalist badge. That's not how it fucking works. Literally, if you're willing to go out in the streets, put your ear to the ground and figure out what's going on, that is what you do. You're telling, in a sense, journalists are kind of like authors of society. They're supposed to be, at least. They're supposed to give an unbiased take. Or not a take, but an unbiased assessment of what happened within a situation. That is the point of a journalist. Anybody can be a journalist. I'm kind of a pseudo journalist. I would say more of a commentator, I guess, or pundit. I don't like the word pundit though, so sounds nasty. It sounds nasty. But literally, if I start going out asking people questions about shit going on around my neighborhood and around my community, I'm a journalist. Just because I'm not fucking stationed at the New York Times doesn't mean I'm not a journalist. And especially now with the way technology is set up, you know, minus the censorship, of course, but I can literally start my own website and start publishing shit. Yes, people are, that's how journalism works. You don't get some fucking badge. You don't go to journalism school. Those are actually the worst journalists. Those are the worst ones that have that seal of approval, because they're getting that seal of approval from the corporate state, which is the government. And that is why journalism is fucked up, because most journalists nowadays are stenographers for the government or the politicians they like. So I wouldn't say Ryan Grimm is necessarily a stenographer for, you know, Joe Biden, but he's definitely a stenographer for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Ro Khanna and the progressives, because he's not holding them to account. He's not challenging them. So that's what's wrong with journalism now.
I mean,
well, give me your definition. Give me your definition.
I mean, you know, I think you've got to have some better accountability. There's no question about it. And we've got to.
I think their 100% truth rating, never having to retract a story, is enough. I would say it's enough. They've never had to retract a story because everything they print is true. Can you say that?
Improve our internal systems about how we do that. But just to say that
you cannot have the leaks coming from, you cannot have the government holding itself accountable. That's like the same thing with having the police hold themselves accountable with internal affairs. That's like the same thing as like the, this another, there's somebody else they were talking about, we're going to review, the DNC. That's like the DNC doing, like, investigating their own servers with a third party. And then everybody's surprised when they find out that CrowdStrike didn't have evidence that Russia hacked the fucking computers. And there's actually more evidence. Jimmy Dore had Bill Binney on, and Bill Binney said from what he read and what he has heard, there's more evidence that somebody connected a USB flash drive to the systems and directly downloaded it, opposed to a hack coming from Russia or a hack in general. So yeah, that's why you don't allow internal reviews and internal investigations, because they're bullshit.
Individual can make any judgment at any time to expose secrets because that person happens to think.
And Julian Assange even means tested his the leaks he put out. Like if it has certain people's names on it, he will redact certain people's names. But there was it was like a Washington Post journalist that he was working with. So I read Washington Post and New York Times. They published a book where they revealed the classified information. So Julian Assange did do his due diligence, but the mainstream media that you're deeming as more competent than him is the one that dropped the ball when it came to redactions and shit like that.
So themselves is absurd. And I don't think Chelsea Manning should have been pardoned for, for that measure. I think she should have been treated far worse than Assange is being targeted.
And you see people like this. So they literally tortured that woman in prison for revealing crimes that the government committed. It's not about secrecy at that point. It's about war crimes that the government is committing in our fucking name. We have a right to know that. And this motherfucker right here, this, as I can tell you, I know why this pissed me off. This is why journalism is fucked. People like him is why journalism is fucked.
Targeted right now because she was in the United States military.
Hello there, ladies. Doing the laundry blows, am I right? Unless you have a 50-inch chest like mine around.
So I think around this discussion,
Crystal's just like, Crystal's
the real question, what you just posed, is actually the question of the internet age. Because, I mean, that was the same, that thing that was raised in 2007. Discussion, Keith. The real question, what you just posed, is actually the question of the internet age. Because, I mean, that was the same, that thing that was raised in 2007, 2008, when people were like, who are these internet blogs that are exposing, you know, secrets? And in the United States, we have a maximalist view of press freedom. And so that's really what it comes down to. I haven't heard you engage yet with that argument, which is that, look, fundamentally, there are people, and the New York Times has even said this, they're like, if you go after Julian Assange for what he has done in this particular case, they could quite easily do the same thing to our journalists whenever we, you know, talk with our sources in order to expose classified information.
Well, you could. I mean, you know, it's a moving target. You know, you're going to be.
Well, you could. It should be okay. You shouldn't be revealing the government secrets, all right? Chelsea Manning, get her back in prison, torture. Julian Assange, keep him in prison, torture him. Snowden, he's a Putin asset. That's basically what this fuckhead is saying.
Judging these things on a case-by-case basis, which isn't comfortable, because you've got to look at every different context, and you may be making.
But you're not using the proper context or framing. And you're bitching about context and framing because you know no matter how you contextualize it or frame it, you're on the wrong side of the argument. And he knows that. That's the worst part. He knows that because he's bullshitting his way through this. Whoever's paying him to do this is paying him a lot. You can literally see their hand up his ass, moving his mouth with their hands up his ass. A
different judgment every time. I mean, there isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all situation. I think the Constitution says it is.
The Constitution says it is. Julian Assange falls under the First Amendment Constitution, even though he's not a senator. Even though he's not a citizen. Citizen and senator kind of start the same. Actually, nah. I guess that. Whatever. Y'all know I'm weird. But he's not a citizen. But what he's doing falls under the First Amendment as a journalist. And the fact that we don't acknowledge that and respect that, and they use this bullshit framing of him being like not an American citizen as a reason why to, you know, pressure our foreign allies to hold this guy without any charges is complete bullshit.
What we really need to do is reform our processes within our security establishment.
No, we should not, because the security establishment has already been revealed to be corrupt. They literally killed JFK. For trying to dismantle them and reform them. They killed the president. They killed him. Graham Elwood and Lee Camp has been covering this. I've known this forever. This is what, look, so look, I'm like 23, 24 years old. I forget my age sometimes because that's how old I am. But I'm like 24 years old. Literally, I grew up in the internet age, like the Illuminati, YouTube. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. When fucking Jay-Z and Kanye West and all them niggas was Illuminati because they was throwing diamonds. I grew up in that era of the internet. JFK was the JFK assassination was a walk in the park when it came to conspiracy theories. It was like, oh, damn, the CIA killed the president. Okay. That was like the first thing you learn. The fact that, like, you know, and maybe it's easier because I grew up with the internet and like I was exposed to these things when I was a kid. Because like, look, like I said, the JFK assassination was like child's play on the spectrum of conspiracy theories and shit like that. And they've taken the word conspiracy theory and made it a dirty word, but there's credible evidence suggesting that the United States government, the CIA, in tandem with the FBI and multiple, you know, other agencies and shit like that, like had a hand in assassinating a president of the United States because he wanted to dismantle the intelligence community. He wanted to reform it, but his reform was dismantling that shit, getting rid of it. It's actually not reforming. See, I'm bad with words. He was trying to dismantle that shit. They're not going to allow reform. Chuck Schumer even said when Trump first got in office and he was having his little war with the FBI, Chuck Schumer basically said you shouldn't fuck with them. They have a million ways to fuck with you, so stop fucking with them. You should stop fucking with them. And Russiagate proves, all this fuckery with Russiagate proves that the intelligence community cannot be trusted. But like over and over again, whether it's, Avril Haines, she basically turned a blind eye to the CIA hacking the Senate Intelligence Committee's computers when they were investigating the FBI for their torture programs. Like there's no internal, we should not be reforming them. We should be limiting their power, not giving them more power to reform themselves. They shouldn't be allowed to reform themselves. There should actually be civilian oversight on the CIA, in my opinion.
To establish better boundaries, to establish more accountability, and to establish what really is and is not classified, what really does need to be kept secret.
Well, let me just say from my perspective that I think it is deeply disappointing that the Biden administration is going to continue seeking indictment of Julian Assange, especially after...
It's not disappointing to me. It's expected. It's expected because Joe Biden is a real fascist. Y'all thought y'all spent 4 years calling Donald Trump a fascist, all this shit, this and that. He showed authoritarian tendencies, but every single turn Trump had at taking more power, he did not. Joe Biden is doing that. Joe Biden, I'm going to cover a Time Magazine article where literally Time Magazine admits that they uncovered this cabal of people getting together to implement censorship to help Joe Biden win the election, and they're cheering that shit on because they're in bed with the power structure. Like Joe Biden is an actual fascist. Joe Biden is the author of the crime bill, which is a fascist policy. Joe Biden is the author of the Patriot Act. A lot of people don't know that. They basically took word for word Biden's American Citizen something bill and turned it into the Patriot Act, and he was bragging about that shit. Joe Biden is an actual fascist. Joe Biden is the one that persecuted Snowden while he's stuck in Russia, like I said earlier. Joe Biden is a fascist. So this is expected. Not disappointing, expected.
Sure.
That's why I didn't fucking vote for him. That's why I didn't vote for him.
All of the protestations about freedom of the press during the Trump era and all of the hand-wringing of the media about freedom of the press, oftentimes rightfully so. This represents perhaps the gravest threat to freedom of the press, and I hear virtually nothing. Gentlemen, stick with us. We're going to be back with more from our panel right after this.
Yeah, so is there a part 2 to this? Let me check and make sure it's not a part 2. But honestly, I feel like that's just enough right there, bro. Like our clowns, bro.
Meet your next pillow.
Hold up. Let me stop.
Why do we make our pillow in the
I hate ads. All right, yeah, that's it. But yeah, like, yo, this shit is crazy, dog. This shit is insane. Like, my thing is, how you gonna motherfucking for 4 years talk about how Trump is literally Trump supporters were pissed off because the media are such liars. That's why I feel like the final drop of the hat was them realizing Fox News are liars too, but they're realizing they're liars for all the wrong reason. They're mad that their Lord and Savior Donald Trump didn't get reelected. That's what they're pissed off about. But they're correct on the sentiment of the media being liars. You guys for 4 years sit here and bitched about press freedoms because Donald Trump was exposing y'all lying and being stenographers for the security state. Like literally they call Bernie Sanders a Russian asset, dog. Like this is like so it's like the fact that we're going like this, it's not surprising. It's expected with Joe Biden. So I'm going to go ahead and close the video out there. It was kind of a long video. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. This is like a spur of the moment thing too. Got a couple more videos coming soon, more planned videos, but yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hit that thumbs up button, share the channel, recommend people to subscribe, yo. And let's get to 1K. I'm trying to get to 1K. Let's get to 1K. I appreciate the love y'all been showing me, dog. Real talk. I really appreciate it, dog. Keep talking to me. I like talking to y'all. I'm gonna be having a guest on tomorrow, talking about some dope shit tomorrow. So be looking out, look out for that. I'm gonna try and get it edited and dropped tomorrow. But I literally after that interview, I gotta rush out to another interview that I'm going to be doing with a couple of homies and shit. So it's about to be some big things. And I got a collab coming. So a collab podcast coming with my guy Gravity the Beast. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Peace.